Hey everybody, it is Courtney here, and I'm going to kick off the webinar in about 3 minutes. If you are watching in the replay, there might be a few minutes of quiet time while everybody jumps onto the webinar. If you are on the webinar, go ahead and type hello in the chat window. Hopefully everybody be dropping in shortly. But if you're waiting, or if you're watching in the replay, just remember it's going to be a couple of minutes before we actually kick off the webinar. Okay. Hey, if you just joined, feel free to type hello in the chat window and let me know you can hear me. And if you want where you're joining from, first and most importantly, let me know if you can hear me. Hi, Emily. Hi, Kevin. Welcome. Welcome, Tyler. Thanks for joining. Great. Great. Happy Friday. Oh, amen to that. What a week it has been, Ardinia. Hi, Robin. The Windy City. Hey, Whitney. Great to see you here. Oh, I'm so glad it's Friday. Christian, welcome. Great. Glad you can hear me. Welcome, Mohammed. Hello from New Jersey. Hey, Div. Is it... I think that's Kiara. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. I apologize if I'm not. Welcome back. I'm really happy to see you here. All right. I've got 11:59 and we're going to start at high noon right on time because it's Friday and I do have a good amount of content to cover today. Hello, Francis. Welcome. Hello, Preeti. Welcome. Oh, sunny San Diego. I bet it is beautiful there. San Diego is a great town. Okay. All right. It just chimed 12 where I am. So I'm going to dig in and drop into this content. And I know this webinar and these topics in particular are going to generate a lot of questions. I doubt I will get to them all, but I will try to be as responsive as I can. So just keep that in mind, a little disclaimer here as we get started. So I am Courtney Kirschbaum, and this week's Job Hunt School Free on Friday webinar is how to answer the 5 hardest interview questions. And I want to add, no matter what's happened in your career, because a few of these cause anxiety because of something that's happened in the past or a situation you're in, and you think that is hanging over you like a dark cloud or a shadow. And often it's not nearly as bad as you think it is. And that's why I tackle these questions. So let's dive in. I always start with my kind of instructions. Focus on the webinar. You'll get so much more out of it. Your time is the most valuable thing you have. So turn your phone off, turn your distractions off. If you've got headphones, put them on and try not to multitask. And more importantly, grab a pen and paper because you will want to capture some things in this webinar. I try to give you good content that you can put to work immediately. So grab some pen and paper. And as always, keep an open mind. You may have heard some of this before, but I'm going to try to introduce, if it is old information, I'm going to try to introduce it or turn it in a way where it gets some new light on it so you can use it perhaps in a way you have it before. So keep an open mind. Okay, you are in the right place if you want financial independence and freedom. That is a big part of my work. It's what I think we should be able to get from our work. I think our career, I believe our career is one of the ways that we make a difference in the world. And we spend a third of our lives at work. So if financial independence and freedom is important to you, then what we cover here and really in all of my webinars is geared toward taking you there. Next, if you want a job you enjoy and a career that has purpose, you are absolutely in the right place. That was a goal of mine, and I try to help as many people get to that place as possible. And if you want work-life balance and respect, you shouldn't have to give your entire world up to get, to get your paycheck. Whitney, I see what you've said there about your audio, and just if you're not on Chrome, you might want to try Chrome. Okay. So I wanted to start with this story. The reason I chose this topic today is interview questions. There are a few interview questions which freak everyone out. And I had a bad interview experience, what could have been a bad interview experience early in my career. And those of you who know my story know that I was born, I think my first words were, "Where's my passport and where can we go?" I really had a dream to travel. I wanted to live all over the world. And I was from a two stoplight town. So I think people from small towns want to travel more than, people who were born and raised in Manhattan. At any rate, I had the bug and I've always had it. And when I graduated college, that's all I wanted to do. So I got the interview of a lifetime. This was all of my Christmases come together, as a good friend of mine used to say. And I went up to the interview. It was in a city close to where I lived, and it was just a big step up. It was a big company. It was an international company. I saw all the doors opening to do this travel that I had dreamed of. And the interview is going great. I could not believe it. I could just see their faces lighting up. I'm like, I am winning the interview. And then this happened. They asked me a question and I just didn't have it. I just could not summon. I knew that I knew the answers. I knew that I knew what to say. It was a technical question. I knew that I'd covered it. This was fairly recently after I'd graduated. I knew that I'd covered it in school, at college, but it wasn't there. And I could just see like the light leaving their faces. It was not good. And the drive home was about a 2-hour drive home from the interview. And I was in a panic because I knew that I had kind of lost them. There was a chance I'd still get the job, but there was a chance that I wouldn't get it. So in that drive home, I kind of came up with a plan. And this is what I did. I tore through my house, found the textbook. They had asked me about SQL. It was a job working on data warehouses. And they had asked me some things about SQL, and I just didn't have it. So in my email after the interview, I said, I included this. I basically said, you asked me about SQL in the interview, and I don't feel like I really answered that as robustly as I could have. And I just want to cover it now. And then I basically just stripped some really great language from the textbook, and I filled in the edges. And I addressed it. Like, I didn't ignore it. I was like, okay, I can fix this. I can recover. And I got that job. And that job was the beginning of like the best career move probably of my life. It was certainly the biggest leap that I ever took. And it's in part why I do what I do now, is because I know that one job hunt, one interview, one negotiation done well can change the course of your life. It can change the trajectory of your career. And everybody wants to burn through job hunting and get it over with. But if you invest a little time in getting it right, you can change the course of your life. And I wasn't a straight A student. I didn't go to a great school, but I had a career, worthy of somebody who brought that to the table, because I found it where I could make a difference, and I made a difference. And I ended up getting that job. It took me all over the world, and I did the travel that I dreamed of, and it was phenomenal. And some of this travel was with work, and some of this travel was what my work made possible. But that is why I do this work, and that's why it's so important to me. And I created my program, Job Hunt School, to help people achieve that, to get their dreams in their career. And these questions that we're going to cover today are ones that make you break out into a cold sweat, and that can crush your chances. And I don't want that to happen to you, because I know you can get around it. So let's dive in to some of this work. And for those of you who maybe don't know me that well, I'll just sum it up and say that how I help job seekers is I help you take an entrepreneurial approach to your career. And that's going to come out when we talk about these questions. A lot of people take the, pick me approach, or you just feel like you have to be the best candidate you can be. And I try to help you take a more business-like approach and help you job hunt and manage your career a little bit more strategically and defensively when necessary. The work I do helps you attract better opportunities, better offers, more money and freedom. And my goal is for you to be more valued and respected for your work and your potential. And finally, I think my superpower is I help people believe in themselves. And every one of these webinars, that's one of my chief goals, is to help you believe in yourself. All right, let's crack on. And someone after the last webinar asked me about my TEDx talk, and it's called The Choices You Make. And if you search that, you can find that TEDx talk, and it summarizes a little bit more about how I feel about what you can do in your career and how you should approach it. All right. The first thing I want to cover is the 4 drivers of an interview. These are the questions you're going to be asked in an interview. And I want to get underneath kind of the framework of interviewing and tell you a few things, hopefully, you may not have heard before. The first driver for an interview is fit. I don't know how many of you knew this, but an interview, one of the primary things that they're trying to determine is not your competency, not can you do the job, although of course that's a factor, but are you going to fit with the culture? The number one reason a person leaves a job in the first year is lack of fit with the culture. It costs thousands of dollars and countless man hours to get somebody on board. So for you to leave in the first year, any candidate to leave in the first year is extremely expensive, and it means people have to go through that again. Also, when somebody leaves, it's almost always a hit to morale. So fit is important because they want you to come in and they want you to stay. So one of the first drivers that you're probably not thinking about is fit. And the reason I bring this up is because often you can be a great candidate. There's nothing wrong with you, but you just don't fit with the culture. And let's face it, that's not always a bad thing. So if you felt like I should have had that job and you didn't get it, remember that fit is a factor. And as I said, sometimes not fitting in at a place is a really good thing. That's a compliment, not a detractor. So driver number 1 is fit. Oh no, I have a dropped Y. Dependability. I don't know why that Y dropped. Okay, number 2, the second interview driver is dependability. And this is another one that's underrated. Just knowing that you will get up and show up and that you can be dependent upon is so important to employers today. We've all worked with that person who always has an excuse, but never a result. And a lot of people discount their dependability. And the more dependable you are, the more likely you are to take it for granted. So if you, at your last job, delivered that newsletter every month, come rain or come shine, if you were the guy who, got up, dressed up and showed up, that matters. So give yourself credit for that and realize that that kind of language in your interviewing and showing your dependability really works in your favor. Okay, so moving on to driver number 3, responsibility. Nobody wants to work with somebody who's always blaming, complaining, justifying, or defending when it comes to their results. We talked about taking 100% responsibility and some of my other webinars. And this is another one that you may think you have to prove your credibility and how wonderful you are and everything that you can do. But one of the things that that they want you to prove is that you are responsible and that you are not going to always have an excuse. You're not going to complain or blame or justify. So they're looking for that, even though this isn't something they might even ask you a question about. They're trying to get to this. And finally, the 4th driver is what I call a wild card. And sometimes when you go into an interview, and you may have experienced this, it may have been right on the table, or it may have been going on in the background. Something has happened at the organization or on the team, and no matter what, the next person they hire, it has to be a sure thing that they won't repeat whatever happened. And you may have experienced this at your own job. They had to fire somebody, and all of a sudden making sure that the next person doesn't exhibit the same characteristics, or that the same thing's not going to happen, any number of things, but it's a wild card. And this could be a big factor in the decision. You could never know about it. And it's another reason that at the end of a great interview, a great series of interviews, you're like, why didn't I get the job? And it could be a wild card. So again, it's why it's so important not to take these things personally and not to feel like, well, it must be me. There must be something wrong with me. You just never know what's going on behind the curtain. And let's face it, they're not always going to share that. So those are your 4 drivers. Do you fit? Are you going to be dependable, responsible? And then there's always that wild card factor. There are a few others in there, but these I think are important ones to accentuate. Okay. One of my favorite analogies for job hunting is that it's a courtship, and interviews are like dates. You want to listen as much as you talk. I talk with a lot of people about their job hunting, and one of the biggest kind of bad interview mistakes is people feel like they are obligated to talk, that you have got to take this time and get as many words as possible so they know how great you are. But what people really appreciate and enjoy more is being around a good listener. And it's easy, especially when you got the nerves, you get nervous. It's easy to talk more than you normally would. So just remember, one of the key things you can do in an interview is focus on your listening, because while you're there, what you're listening for is, what are your problems? How can I help you? And as you probably know, everybody loves to talk about what's bugging them, loves to talk about their problems. And I don't know what your experience has been, but my experience over the years is the person who's interviewing likes to talk often as much as the person who's being interviewed. So listen. Don't feel like the onus is on you to talk. Get quiet and listen, and you will come out of that interview probably being much more, viewed much more favorably. All right, so we're going to jump in. We're going to go through the 5 questions, the 5 hardest ones. And for if you're wondering kind of where did I come up with these are pulled from, some of you may have responded to it. I send out emails with tips and instructions and guidance on job hunting. And one of my emails, I always ask, what's the hardest interview question? What's the one you don't want to hear? And I've gotten hundreds of responses to that. And these are the responses that come up most often. So that's where I got the 5 hardest. Okay, first, the tequila disclaimer. Job hunting is like drinking tequila. And the reason it's like drinking tequila is because under its influence, you're not yourself. And I've never seen anything affect people the way job hunting does. And of course, it's because so much hangs in the balance. And the reason I want to bring up the tequila disclaimer is, if you think that you're terrible at job hunting or you're terrible at interviewing, everyone is affected by this. The most galvanized, confident person gets a little shaky and is not themselves in a job hunt. And I'm going to give you the remedy for that in this webinar, but I do want you to know it's quite normal. And that is the tequila disclaimer. Everybody just acts a little bit different in a job hunt, and you might say things or do things that you normally wouldn't. And that's why you need to prepare yourself. And if you're here, you're doing that. So kudos to you. And the first trigger for you not being yourself and going into freak out cold sweat mode is coming up. And that is, tell me about yourself. Such a simple question, but when you get it in an interview, it is so difficult. Tim, yes, it is appropriate to take notes during an interview. Probably not around this question. But when they say, tell me about yourself, it can be unnerving. And it's unnerving because it's really, it's a cocktail party question, but all of a sudden your paycheck's hanging in the balance. So let's dive into this a little bit. What they're really saying is, make it make sense to me that you're sitting across from me right now, right? What they don't want is, I was born in a holler, or, your life story. No, they just want a quick and dirty, as they say, maybe 2-minute Reader's Digest version. And here are some of the things that you want. Here are some of the guidelines that you can use to make sure that you bat this one out of the park. So here's how you handle it. The biggest mistake you can make here is talking too long. I was born in a holler. I got my first pair of shoes at sixth grade graduation, and on and on and on. No, they don't want to hear that. Another big mistake is you go deer in the headlights, like you weren't expecting it. And since it is the most common, you'll note the fun fact. It's one of the, it's probably the most common interview question. You want to be prepared. You don't want to go full robot. You don't want to like have your little soliloquy rehearsed, but you do want to be prepared. And there's nothing wrong or fake or insincere about preparing for this. So don't feel, like you're, fake or anything like that. This is business and you need to prepare for this. So here's probably the best way to prepare. Begin with the end in mind. When you're finished talking, you want them to say, yep, that makes sense. So you want to tell a very short story, keep it under 2 minutes, that leaves them thinking, yeah, that makes sense. You want to go back enough to establish a timeline that ends with you sitting in front of them. And that's why I applied for this job. Bam. End of story. And they need to be nodding. So don't talk too long. Don't go deer in the headlights because you didn't prepare. You want to prepare a little bit, but you don't want to recite a memorized response. You want reverse order chronological, and the ultimate goal is just to leave them thinking that makes sense. There is nothing wrong with practicing. The more you practice, the better you're going to come out, the more money you're going to make, the more likely it is you're going to get the job. Interviewing is something you should absolutely practice. Okay, so that's the first question. Tell me about yourself. Okay, moving on. This one is one that really makes people nervous because sometimes we leave jobs under circumstances that are less than ideal. Couple of things about that. This happens to everyone in their career. It's unlikely that you will meet anyone with a decade in, even less, that hasn't had, it's like a bad date. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. Sometimes it's not a fit. And that is not a scarlet letter that you should have to wear around for the rest of your career and feel self-conscious about. Even if it was, quote unquote, your fault. We all make mistakes. And it should not be a dark cloud that you feel is following you around. So when it comes to, why did you leave? I think that's really the first thing that I want you to keep in mind, that things happen. These types of things happen to everyone. Yeah, Jose, I'll definitely get into that. Sometimes you have a very easy out and you don't sweat this question. But what I have observed is people that do kind of get nervous about this question because they had things went south with their boss or for whatever reason, it can really be unnerving. So we're going to dig a little deeper into this. Now, the biggest mistake I see people make with this when I was interviewing is you're in the interview, you're dressed great, you showed up on time, you answered your first question like an ace, and then they say, well, why did you leave, Widget Makers, Incorporated? And then you kick into therapy mode because you have some emotional baggage around this that you haven't worked out. Do not do that in your interview. It is totally okay to need that therapy. Sometimes leaving a job can be traumatic. It can be tearful, emotional. There's nothing wrong with experiencing that. It doesn't belong in your next interview. What you want to have is a short, concise statement. And if you have to rehearse this well enough to get an Academy Award, then do it. If you are nervous or worried about this response, the more you rehearse, the better it will be. Your job is to give the nothing to see here. Your job interview does not obligate you to tell in great detail the entire truth of your life up to that point. People expect you to be discreet and tactful. And this is a test of how discreet and tactful you can be, not a test of how you can give every gory detail or explain how it wasn't your fault or any of those things. So if you feel emotional and you still feel like you've got some emotion around that question, get it out somewhere else and don't bring it into the interview. And keep this in mind. however bad it was, chances are the person interviewing you has done worse themselves, seen worse, or heard about worse, because that's just the way life is. So don't feel like, this has only happened to you. Absolutely not the case. So I want to break down how you can answer this question. No matter what your circumstances are, this little equation will work to help you handle it. Always start with the positive. I loved working at Acme Widgets. Working at Acme Widgets was such a rewarding challenge for me. We had so many successes there. Okay? Start positive. No matter how horrible the job was, how horrible your experience, you find one positive thing and say that with your whole heart. Because if you're faking it, they're going to be able to tell. So just find a positive and say something that you loved about the company, because how you talk about your old company is going to be how you'll talk about this company, and they know that. Next, give a reason. It can be, Whitney, you mentioned technology. There's always technologies, layoffs in an industry. Technology. Right now, I just read that JP Morgan is doing massive layoffs. There are a lot of, it appears there are a lot of layoffs happening in the financial industry. It could be a change of career direction. If it's publicly known, say the company is struggling, don't disclose confidential information. Don't give the appearance of being indiscreet. You can say, there were no more battles to win there. I joined as a junior project manager, and by the time I left, I was, right now I'm their most senior, and I'm, looking for new hills to climb. The key is to keep it positive. I did what I came to do, and it's time to move on, and that's why I applied for the job as, head of the PMO here, looking to help another company grow. End with it, whatever you decide to choose, professional growth, organizational change, whatever reason you give, end with it at their doorstep. Again, a logical story that ends with, and that's why I'm here. Because you want to leave them thinking, yeah, that makes sense. Because that's when they get that, no red flags, nothing to see here. Next question. So just give them one reason. Keep it short. The kiss of death here is rambling. As soon as you start rambling, they're like, yeah, covering something up. Don't know what it is, but they're covering something up. So that's your equation. Start positive, give one clear, sensible reason, end with them. All right, moving on. Next question. Number 3, tell me about a weakness. This one is one that makes people break out into a cold sweat. I totally understand why, but we're going to dodge this bullet completely. Here's how. No way are you telling them about a weakness. You want to use the political candidate's trick here, in that you don't want to accept the premise of this question. You're not going to tell them about a weakness, because that would be negative. That's going to a dark place. You don't want to go negative ever. You want to keep it positive. So there are a few things that you really don't want to give into here. And the first one is, don't accept the premise of the question. Don't repeat it back. What you say creates a vision in people's head. So just because they ask what's your weakness doesn't mean you have to respond in kind. Don't repeat it back. One thing you can do is just point out an area you'd like to develop. It's a positive way of interpreting weakness. It also points out kind of an expectation that you might have at the company. So this kind of points to fit. So what's one of your greatest weaknesses? I'd like to develop my project management skills. It's something I started doing at my last company. I had a lot of early successes with it, and I want to grow in that area more. So you're not admitting to a weakness. You're pointing the light on the future. You're pointing the light on a future with them. Tie it to something that they mentioned in the job description. Use a short fall down, get up story. One way you can handle this question is to say, at my last job, I began my last job, and I didn't really know Excel that well. By the time I left, I was the office Excel guru. So you've kind of addressed the quote unquote weakness without acknowledging that you have a weakness. And you've shown like, this person takes their weaknesses and turns them into strengths. So don't accept the premise of the question. Don't repeat it back. You can use a short fall down, get up story, or just talk about an area that you would like to develop. And again, take it right to the doorstep of this new company. And that's why I'm here today. That's why I applied for this job. That's why I want to join you. That's why I want to join this team. And I'll show you another trick as we get a little bit further down. I'll show you another trick you can handle this. I see your questions coming in, Whitney, Francis, and I'll loop back and hit those towards the end if we have time. Okay. Next question. This is a tough one. What are your salary requirements? How many of you freak out when you get this one? Okay. What they want, what they're trying to get here depends on when this gets asked in the process. And it can get asked a couple of times. So let's break this down. Okay. So if they ask it early, they want to know, can I afford you? Are you just way out of my ballpark? And also this is such a harbinger, of kind of what's to come. How you answer this question, how you handle this question tells them everything they need to know about how strong a candidate, how strong a personality you have, how much tact you have, how you handle difficult situations and difficult questions, because there's nothing that has the potential to be more awkward and uncomfortable than money. This is a question that everybody goes into an interview thinking, nope, not going to tell them. And everybody comes out, I told them. Don't feel bad. The reason that happened is because you weren't prepared. The person who asked you that question has asked it 500, 1,000, 2,000 times. You've probably had to answer it about 4 or 5 times. So don't beat yourself up. Prepare. The biggest mistake you can make is to go in unprepared and to give in. Do your homework. First of all, you want to know the laws in your state. There are some places where it is illegal, and the number of places where it's illegal is increasing. So not so you can jump up and say, that's illegal for you to ask me. But you will know if it is illegal in your state for a state agency to ask what you're making and then ask what you're making, then that tells you something about them. And it's good to know. There are things that they can ask that help them get around that, like what are your salary requirements, which, let's face it, is almost as awkward if you're not prepared. So you want to do your homework and you want to know the ranges. Absolutely. You want to know the ranges. Christian, I'm responding to you. Absolutely value yourself. You want bulletproof prep for this. Bulletproof prep. Don't hope for the best. You will lose thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And I'll tell you a story about that in a minute. So here are some responses. But the chief takeaway here is never give up your salary. Never give up a range. They're interviewing you. It is their job to give the numbers. And here's how you want to handle that. Here are some responses. I'm willing to entertain any reasonable offer. They're probably going to push back. Without knowing the entire compensation package, I can't break the salary piece out and give a number. Tell me your range, and I'll make sure you're not wasting your time. So that's really in the early stages. That's all they want to know. No recruiter wants to get to the end of the line with their client and have the client say, yeah, I want 400,000 and the budget, ceiling is 250. Everybody's wasted their time, including you. You have to be bulletproof here, and you've got to make them come up with it. And that's going to be difficult because in an interview, you want to be, pleasing and amenable, but business is business. And this is where you show who you are. If you roll over and be the nice person, they know that if they send you into a vendor negotiation, you're going to do the same thing on their behalf. Women especially, I encourage you to say, if you feel like you're uncomfortable, quote unquote, playing hardball, say, business is business, and this is the only time we're going to be negotiating. We're going to be at opposite sides of the table from one another. I'll be just as conscientious and and do my homework just as much and be as on top of this for you as I am for myself. So, just women especially, because I think women get, studies show that women are judged a bit more harshly for negotiating. That's not a reason not to negotiate. Put that little caveat up front. This is the only time we're going to be on opposite sides of the table from one another. I want us to get to a good place, keep it positive, but be firm. Don't roll over, because the minute you do, you're going to lose respect. And these are people you're going to be working for, and you don't want that to happen. If you get somebody who's a real bully, you anticipate bullying on this, and it happens. First of all, if it's not the recruiter, if it's somebody at the firm, is this where you want to work? If they're bullying you, if they're really pushing you. So one of my favorites is, I've signed a non-disclosure agreement regarding my finances. I have to be really careful what I reveal here. If you tell me your range, I'll be more than happy to let you know if we can go forward. And I see your questions, and I'm going to get to those. I'm not ignoring you guys. Frank, Jose. So most of these are in the early stages. Where you want to get to is, yes, we can go forward. I'm not going to break the bank or make you look like an idiot at the end. Another thing is, you don't know anything about the job. Everybody focuses on salary, but the fact is, your compensation is a package that consists of insurance, time off, all kinds of things. And for you to pluck out a number, it just doesn't work, because those things have a monetary value. So there's quite a bit of homework that needs to go into this. And if you establish that you get that, they're going to respect you more, not less. Finally, Jose, you asked, do those answers work for any stage? Typically in the beginning stage, the goal is, do we want to go forward? Now at the end, when it's okay, we're ready, let's make this a marriage, let's get you in the door. They're going to say, well, what are you thinking? It's their responsibility to make you an offer. End of story. Make me an offer. Make me an offer. Make me an offer. You don't give up a number, because as soon as you've turned your cards over and shown them your cards. And, this is, I believe that most employers really want to get to a fair number. Everybody thinks, they're trying to nail you to the wall. And I think if you approach it in a defensive position, then it brings, bad energy into it. It's on them to make an offer. It is on them to make an offer, and you have really got to prep for this, or you will roll right over, because they know you feel awkward, and they will play that all day long, because business is business, and you need to manage your career like you're a business person. As an entrepreneur, you owe that to yourself, and you need to make them understand, communicate to them, I will be just as conscientious and negotiate just as hard for you as I am for myself right now. End of story. Okay. Your superpower is silence. You'll get the script, but you've got to zip it, because as soon as you start talking, the next thing you know, your salary or you're giving numbers. And when you start giving numbers, you're losing. So get that training. Guys, I'll loop back to your questions. We're going to go to number 5, and then I'll hit some of your questions. Okay. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? They still ask this. I posted something on LinkedIn about this, and somebody said, didn't they vote that question off the island? No, this question is so tricky. I think they're always going to ask this. And the reason they ask this is because when you project yourself into the future, you will reveal things about yourself that you would not reveal if somebody asked you, like, kind of in the present moment. We're in here and now. But if you put yourself in the future, it is a back door into what you're really thinking. So that's one reason people ask this. I have got a bulletproof answer for you that really gets you out of, really gets you out of the trap part of this question. Because it's like, nobody knows where they're going to be in 5 years. Give me a break. So there's no need to feel pressure on this, because this is what you want to say. That depends. Where you're going to be in 5 years depends on the outcome of this interview, for one thing. That depends. And then you want to take it to a conversation about you and this company in the future. When you talk to people, whether they realize it or not, whether you realize it or not, people are creating images in their head. They're creating images of bad things or good things, and you want them to create images of good things. That depends. Can you tell me about, what your objective for this role is, and, what things you would like to have achieved in a year or a few years? Take control of the question. That depends. It depends on what your goals are for this, position, what your priorities are. How would you like this department to look? What would you like to have achieved in 5 years? Make it like you're reaching out and holding hands with them and saying, well, in 5 years, I'll have been working here for 5 years. Where are we going to be then? Because you want them to have an image of them, of you guys working together. So that depends. And then kind of turn the question a little bit and get them talking about where you're going to go together. And when you're talking about flipping, the approach to all of these questions should involve some balance. I posted this on LinkedIn a couple months ago, and people are like, oh, if you start asking those questions, that's really snotty. You shouldn't go into an interview with attitude. This is a business arrangement. It's a business partnership. The employee-employer relationship is not a parent-child relationship. It's not a student-teacher relationship. It's a service agreement. It's a business contract. And you have the right to ask questions to your employer. I don't advise doing it with cheek or any of that, but any of these questions, answer, and then it's okay to ask. Why do you think someone would want to work here? What's your greatest weakness? Now, you don't want to say, well, what's yours? Obviously you don't want to be a smart aleck. You don't want to be cheeky, but you do want to be discerning, and you want to find out what's going on with this company. And this is your chance to listen. So ask with empathy, ask with consideration. But remember, this isn't a one-way, this isn't a one-way door. This isn't a one-way conversation. And it is not only good for you to ask questions, it's really your responsibility to yourself and to them, because that's how you get to that good fit. They ask you about your 5-year plan, ask them about theirs, and not to be cheeky, not to turn the question around and be contrary, but, to show respect and to show that you're both headed in the same direction. I see your questions coming in. Let me just see where we are on time, and I'll hit a few of these. I think you can answer pretty the same. I think you can give the same answer, more than once, color it a little bit, but, you're going to get asked the same question a lot. There's nothing wrong with a little consistency. Francis, your question about answering differently if the interviewers appear. I think in terms of what does why is that, they're going to ask those questions, Francis, with different, a peer is going to ask the same question, maybe with a different perspective from the boss, or, with a different, wanting to know something slightly different than the boss. So I think it would depend, but I don't think there'd be anything wrong with answering it differently to a peer than you would to your boss's boss, because they may be asking the question for different reasons based on the fact that they're in a different position at the company. All right, I'm just scrolling down to look at a couple of these questions. Oh, Frank, best place to find ranges. There are so many places right now on the internet. Of course, can I think of a single one? I'll include one or two in the email, in the post webinar email. Glassdoor, I know, has them. I think salary.com. A lot of people don't want to do this research, but you absolutely have to, because things change fast. And remember, it's a compensation package. Everybody gets caught up on the number, how much they take it home, how much can they put in the 401k, but all of the other elements in your compensation package have a dollar value, and you need to know exactly what they are. Okay. So what makes it possible to survive all these questions? Because me talking about it and giving you the language, it won't work if you don't have confidence. And this is something I think you probably know that. It's like, yeah, easier said. Yeah, glass door, Frank. Easier said. It's easy to kind of say all this, but for you to deliver it, you have to have confidence. And you build your confidence by surviving a series of risks, of small risks. Another way you build your confidence is to prepare. It's like walking into a test knowing that you've studied and you know that material, and you walk in and you're bulletproof. The more prepared you are, the more confidence you have. So that is absolutely critical. At the end of, once we wrap up today, this afternoon, I will get out some tools to help you prepare for that. And I'm going to give you a tool. I'm going to introduce a tool that you might want to consider if you found this useful. And it might be a way for you to better prepare, because, as I told you at the beginning of this webinar, your job hunt is your biggest chance to make a big move up in your career. And if you put the work in, you can exceed your own expectations. And I know, because I've done it and I've helped other people do it. And I always talk about my golden rule of success. And the golden rule of success is winners are people who do what losers are afraid or unwilling to do. And a lot of people want to burn through their job hunt. They want to ignore their awkwardness around questions or around the salary question, and they don't want to prep. But the people who succeed and who get ahead, and you're looking at and thinking, how did she get that job? She got C's all through college, but you can really make a masterful turn out of your job hunt. So if you're interested in learning more, everything, all the content and all of the deeper content underneath the prep, all of that came from Job Hunt School. And if you're interested in learning more, you might want to consider this to prep for your job hunt. We cover 5 modules. The first one is knowing, which is knowing your salary, knowing the job that you want, knowing the next step you want to take in your career. This is Brad Dawn's. Brad joined, I guess, about a month ago. And he finished the no section of Job Hunt School. And one of the things in the no section is all of the salary prep material. Where do you get your salary ranges? Places to go to ask people, because even though the sites on the internet are great, it is also nice to have a one-on-one conversation with people. So this is what Brad had to say after he joined Job Hunt School and went through the no, just the first section. If you want to get better results, prepare. The second section is contact. One of the biggest mistakes I see people making is all they do is focus their job hunt on the job boards, and that is a cattle call. It's like, trying to become a star without an agent, or trying to get a job acting without a union card. It is the worst way to go about it. And often the people who get hired when you apply through a job board, you're overqualified because they had so many people apply. The contact section shows you how to get around that. Destiny Sims just got a job a couple of weeks ago. When she finished the contact section, this is what she said: I realized I've been doing this process all wrong. Destiny, after her first interview, got called in by the CEO. The CEO was so impressed with her, they didn't hire her, but the CEO wanted to talk to her and help her. And she ended up getting a job, and I'll tell you a little bit about that story. But she changed her tactics, and she quit using the job boards, and she went a more direct route, and she got much better results. Again, it's preparation. The compose section, writing your resume. Everybody thinks, oh, it's all about my resume, but really it's a lot about your LinkedIn profile. So there's a lot of ground you can cover in how you write about yourself. And I see a lot of people missing that opportunity. So that's one of the modules. The connect module is all about interviewing. We talk about everything here. I give you all the prep materials. So when you walk into that interview, you feel you have that confidence that you need, because it really comes down to confidence and knowing that even if you make a mistake, you can correct it. This is Zara. Zara just got a job also about 2 weeks ago. And she posted this in our common room. She used the unforgettable interview tool. It's in the connect section, and she used it to prepare for her interview. She said it helped me structure my pitch, as well as helping me discuss all my important strengths relevant to the job and provide examples to substantiate them. And Zara just got hired. And finally, the close, and this is where we get into that negotiation, because you've got to be bulletproof. And there are also some contractual things. I'll probably do another webinar on this because it's such an important topic. Employment contracts have become very restrictive, and you can sign your employment contract as is and sign your way out of a job in your industry for 2 years. And if you don't know what to look for and know how to ask to get it removed, you're putting on a pair of handcuffs, and they won't disappear for 2 years. So the close section helps you prepare for the negotiation, and it helps you understand, how you can get trapped, and tactful diplomatic language to make sure that doesn't happen to you. It includes a 5-video negotiation series, and one of the candidates who joined Job Hunt School, they made her an offer and she got the job. And I went back and I asked her and I said, hey, how did the salary negotiation go? And I know people are real sensitive about talking about this, especially if they give in. And she told me the dollar figure increase over her previous salary. And I said, well, can you give me that in percent? And she said, I got a 25% pay increase. And she used the tools in the negotiation series. And the thing is, it's not that complicated. It's just that most people never get these tools. And 25%, that's a massive pay increase. But that's what she got. And it was absolutely that was a great day. I think it was 26 times her investment in the program. You also get a ton of resources. I just had an email from a gentleman who used one of the resources, Photo Feeler, about how to test your photo for your profiles. So loads of resources, and we're adding new ones all the time, like the places where you go get salary reviews or places where you get reviews on companies. They're all over the place and it's overwhelming, and we consolidated and put it in one place. So you'll get that as well. There is a private forum. It's called the Common Room, and I'm there all the time answering questions. A lot, one of the posts that you saw here came from the Common Room. It's kind of group coaching, but you also get insights on what's going on with other people in their careers, and you get a place where you can ask questions that's not on LinkedIn. Because if you follow me or you've been on one of my previous webinars, you know that anything that happens on LinkedIn is happening for the whole wide world to see. So Job Hunt School includes a Common Room. It's private. It's just us, and you can post your questions, and you can, whatever you need to do, you can ask other job seekers or you can ask me. Job Hunt School also comes with bonuses. LinkedIn Boost. I think I've talked about that before. That is a mini course that I sell separately that is included in Job Hunt School. The negotiation, the 5-series video is in there. That's $199 value. You get a Resign Right package. That is one of the trickiest things people do, is when they get to resignation, they're like, oh my God, what do I do? What do I ask? How do I handle this? So never again will that plague you. You'll know exactly what to do. By the time you use that, they'll be like, please don't go. We want you to stay now. And also you get some mindset tools, some meditations. Everybody laughs at these meditations, but they are so powerful to help you let go of the junk and get your head right for an interview, for your next job, for whatever you need to do. So all of these bonuses are also included with Job Hunt School, and they're a $549 value. Honestly, the price of admission is covered in LinkedIn Boost in the negotiation course, and they're video-based, very popular. John McCaskill, the couple, and Alagu Mariappin, both of these guys recently did LinkedIn Boost, and they absolutely loved it. Also, I encourage you, if you don't already, to follow John McCaskill and Alagu Mariappin on LinkedIn. They have really good feeds, really good profiles. You can learn a lot just by following those guys. And that's LinkedIn Boost. It's about 90 minutes worth of content, self-paced, but really powerful for getting LinkedIn dialed in. And really it's equal or more important than your resume when it comes to modern job hunting. Everything in Job Hunt School is downloadable and portable. It is yours for life. You can use it now. You can come back if you're job hunting in a year, 2 years, 5 years, and use it again. It'll all be updated. So it's completely portable, and it is yours, and it's like click and go. If you're interested, if you want to learn more, Job Hunt School is $4.99, and you get all of the materials instantly. So it is out there. If you want to pursue a little bit more education and want to get a little bit more bulletproof when it comes to your job hunting, I would love to work with you. Regardless, I am so glad you joined us today. I'm going to send out some resources as I do after every webinar. These are free on Friday. I hope you'll join us again. I haven't picked a topic for next week. If you would like to suggest something, please do so. You can email me. You can put it in the comments. But if you want to get a little bit more robust education in this, I really hope that you will join me in Job Hunt School. I would love to work with you. Now, I'm going to get back into these questions and answer them. Ardinia, bless you. Yes, you are doing them now. You are the best. Thank you, my dear. Confidence is the new currency. It's really worth more than money. It is so true. All right, let me jump down here. Whitney, you are wonderful. Absolutely. Professional organizations will help you so much because they want to bring great people into their profession. So if you call them and say, I want to get some salary information, they will go out of their way to help you. Payscale.com, salary.com. Absolutely. Thank you, Christian. I'm just going to scale down. Look at these questions. And if you have any questions about, Job Hunt School, anything that includes, one other thing I wanted to mention on Job Hunt School is there is a money back guarantee. So if you get into it, you have 30 days to try it. And if it doesn't work for you, you're like, nope, changed my mind, not what I was expecting. We have a 30-day money back guarantee. All I ask is that you submit your completed materials because it does work if you work the program. But that is there for you. It's no risk. You can try it. And if it doesn't work for you, just let us know. All right. Scanning back down to these questions, because I know there are a couple of good ones early in. Weakness question. Oh, Francis, here we go. Francis, that's, I'm addressing your ADHD question. Yeah, that's a tough one. At the end of the day, you have to make the call about what you want to share and not share. I'll be perfectly frank with you. I think this is going to raise a red flag. I would ask myself, why do I need to tell them? I don't feel like you're honor bound to tell them. You have a condition, and we all have conditions that sometimes cause us not to work as well or be at work or whatever. There is no perfect robot employee out there that's never sick. They don't have any problems. So, everybody has something. So I don't know that, you need to go in there and do a full disclosure on your something. So, I don't know kind of the downstream impacts of having, you mentioned ADHD. So I just wouldn't feel, I don't think you're honor bound to say it. I think you need to kind of decide. It would depend on the job. Obviously, if you're, a jet pilot, well, then you might be more obligated. But if you're working as an admin, less so. And like, why would you need to bring that up? Because we're all bringing something to the desk. So hopefully that gives you some insight. Let's see. I'm going to scan down a little bit further. Christian, you're welcome. Thank you for joining. Just scrolling down, looking for more questions. Jose, I see your question here. It's a struggle for me because I worked for a U.S. company, and when I try to avoid it, they think I'm very expensive. Jose, again, it all comes down to prep. It may be that your economic needs aren't going to mesh with working in another country just because of the salary differential. And that's a reality that some people have to deal with. But again, it all comes down to doing that, kind of getting down to those grinding details, figuring out exactly what the numbers are, exactly what the market is, and deciding, being clear on exactly what you can do. Anytime somebody tells me they're struggling with a salary issue, my first response is do more research, do more homework, because the answer, it comes down to making a decision, like what you're willing to do, what you're willing to accept, what you're willing to trade off. And that usually comes out in the work. All right, just scroll a little bit further down. Thanks for all these great suggestions that everyone's posted. Okay, we are ticking right up at the top of the hour. So I'm going to close the call. If you have any questions about Job Hunt School, please feel free to follow up with me, and you can enroll anytime. Frank, thank you so much. You're the best. I'm glad you were here. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And I look forward to seeing you guys on another webinar. I'll post that. If you've joined a webinar, you'll get a notice for the next one. Everybody have an awesome weekend, and the replay will be going up. Heads up on the replay. There might be a slight delay before it gets up, but if you missed any of this or you want to capture a question or some insight that you might have missed, the replay will be up soon, and you'll get a notice about that as well. Look for an email with resources to come, and everybody have an awesome, awesome weekend. So grateful for having everybody here today. Take care. Thank you, Whitney. Appreciate your insight on that. Yeah, I think it's different flavors for sure on the ADHD. Thank you, Preeti. You're welcome, Tyler. Cheers from Spain. Thank you, Jose. Yeah, I'm saying your name wrong. Prashant. There will be a replay, and if you have registered, and you obviously have because you're here, you will get a notice of the replay. And it does, when the replay might start a little bit late, I'll go in and edit it. But if there's a long pause at the beginning, it's not because it's broken. It's because I turn the webinar on sometimes before I start talking. Ardenia, thank you, thank you, thank you. See you in Job Hunt School. See you in the common room. Talion, thank you so much for joining and for your support on LinkedIn. I see your likes and your shares and your comments, and I'm really grateful. Appreciate those. Thank you. You're welcome, Perry. Thanks for joining. Have a good weekend.